Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. And today I've started working with the Poppy suite. Let's see, in the catalog, and we can finally show you the inside of the catalog. It's so exciting. This Poppy suite is called Peaceful Poppies Suite, and it's a mega suite. So it's got 2 stamp sets and 2 die sets associated with it. Painted Poppies bundle and Peaceful Moments bundle. And one of them has flowers and no sentiments, and one of them has only sentiments, but the dies cut out different kinds of things that work with both. So that's what I'm working with, and I was inspired for this card. I don't know if you've ever seen her channel, but there's a young lady on YouTube by the name of Katina Martinez. And Katina makes lots of different kinds of cards. And I was watching and I just was so taken with the one cut that she did that I've decided that gave me the inspiration. Now, I've done my own take on it, but if you've never seen Katina's channel, she does do some fun things. And it would probably be entertaining to watch her. So I'll show you one, and I did several versions of this card. The one I'm going to show you today is if you started out and you said this one was simple and easy, and then the next version was jazzy, and the last version is really snazzy. We're doing the really snazzy one. And then I'll show you the others. And there's one that's very simple, and once you learn how to do this one, you can make any of them. So let's just get started. Okay, here is my card project, and it is a card that opens. It's captured to be closed here with these flowers, and then the card opens this way and then opens this way. And so it requires 2 pieces of paper, so a full sheet, to make this card. So let me show you. Let me put this back so that you can see how this mechanism works. This top flap just tucks behind the flowers there, and that's what holds the card closed. Okay, so in order to make this card, we need 2 pieces of Poppy Parade that are cut 11 inches by 4 1/4, and then scored at 5 1/2. And I have taken the first one, and I put some marks on one of them. Let's see if I can find those again. There we go. All right. So what I've done is I've measured down on one side of this card to 4 inches, and I've put a little tick mark right here at 4 inches, and then I've measured down on this side of the card at 3 inches and put a little tick mark. And then what we'll need is our trimmer. I'm going to set that in so that those 2 tick marks are right in the cutting channel. So down 4 inches on this side and 3 inches on this side. And there they are. And I'm just going to cut that at an angle. All right. Then I've got a piece of this designer series paper out of this Poppy Parade paper. Now here in the catalog it shows all of the various ones that are shown, and the one we're using is this one. It's got this pattern on the back side, and I'll show that to you in a minute. But I want to get to cutting this so that this doesn't go too long. So on this one I've done exactly the same thing. This is cut to 4 1/4 because on this card I wanted this paper to completely cover this upper part of the card. So it's 4 1/4 wide, and then I've marked here at 4 inches on the one side and 3 inches on the other. So right here, and this piece of paper should now fit and completely cover this top part of the card. Now, on the inside of this card, you see this other piece here. So we're going to need to cut another piece to go on the bottom of the inside of the card. And that piece measures 1 5/8 on one side and 2 5/8 on the other side. So we'll just measure this down here. You want your poppies all going in the same direction. So I'm going to measure down 1 5/8 on this side and put a tick mark on my paper, and then 2 5/8 on this side to get my measurement coming across, and that is just to get a straight cut here at the bottom. Now, this piece was cut originally to fit the outer part, so it's a little too wide because my inside card is 4 by 5 1/4, so we need this piece to be 4 inches long. So I'm just going to slice a little edge off of that. So that's now 4 inches across the bottom. All right. Now then, so we have our 2 pieces of Poppy Parade, and this piece on the bottom here measures up 3 1/2 inches. So on our other piece, I need this to come up 3 1/2 inches from the bottom. So what I need to do is cut this off at 3 1/2 inches from the fold. So if I put my fold line at 3 1/2 inches, and if it goes a little bit over, that's not a problem. You just don't want it to go much shorter than that. So there we go. And that allows us to have this second piece. So now we have this piece that folds this way, and we have this piece that's going to fit on here and fold up and be covered by this piece. So that is the way you make the base on this one. This piece is going to go right on the front, and there's nothing other than our sentiment that sits on top. So this piece can be put into place. So I can just take my snail and go around the edges here. And put this piece into place on the front of my card. Isn't this paper gorgeous? And I promised to show you the paper, so I'm going to bring that up here in just a second so you can see just how beautiful it is. Some of you may already have some of this in your hands by now, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Now the complementary greens on this is Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. So I'm going to bring this across here. So this is the one that we're using now, only I'm using this side of it. And this side of it is just as pretty, and it's got like, I think it's Pool Party, that is the complementary color. Then there's this green stripe and these purple poppies. Then there are these poppies. Isn't that pretty? That's just gorgeous too. And this beautiful kind of Poppy Parade color wash on the back. Then there's this purple color wash with the polka dots, and on the other side of it are these giant poppies that have the Poppy Parade, some yellows in them, and then some purples kind of mixing in. And the back side of that is this one. Then we have this kind of stripe color wash, and the other side of that are even tinier poppies. And that is the combination there of all of those papers. Aren't they just luscious? They're just gorgeous. I'm really, really enjoying just getting started working with this. And with 2 stamp sets and 2 die sets, boy, there's just so much you can do. I'll be doing several videos on this one. And I may turn this one into my upcoming online class. We'll have to see. But that's how that goes together. This piece is done. Now then we have our second piece ready to go here. And these two are just going to go on top of one another and just need to be connected together. And so I'm going to use Tombow glue on this because I really want this part to stick together. I want this not to be impeded by this card folding down, so I'm going to fold that down and put that piece in place and push it in place, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to move that glue around on the back side of that. Now in Katina's card, one of the things that she did was that she didn't have the piece folding up. That was what I decided to do that was a bit different than the one she was doing. And I'll show you one that's kind of close to what she did, although it's still quite a bit different. But the idea of the slant cut on the front, and I think hers was a deeper cut so that this piece only came down, it came down like to here, if I remember right. Once I see them and then I get my own idea, I kind of lose track of what else they did. Okay, so here we go. We've got this all ready to go. Now on this one, although you can't even really see it, I did stamp this stamp across the front. Let me show you the stamp sets. We have this stamp set, which is the Peaceful Moments, and on this card I used this Happy Birthday. And then on the other stamp set is where we've got the stamps of the poppies, and we have this big one here, which is this one, and I'm not sure it's worth putting that stamp on there and then just not being able to see anything. So I think I'm going to leave that one off this time. So from this stamp set, what I'm doing is I'm using this big poppy, this little poppy, this small splatter, and this leaf. And that's what I'm using to put on the bottom of my paper here. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to put that little splatter, and I've got mine mounted here, and what I'm going to do is stamp off a couple of times because I don't want that very dark, and I'm going to just stamp, and just to get a little bit of texture, just kind of around so it's not quite so plain. And I'm going to do that kind of around the edges because, as you can see, we're going to end up covering up an awful lot of the bottom of this card. All right, now die sets. I used only the Painted Poppies die set, and I have all of the dies off of it. But it does have 2 of the leaves that you can die cut out, and then it's got this lovely label. This one is interesting. I went ahead and cut one out just so that I could see what it's like, and it cuts out this little label here, and if you have a small sentiment, that would be perfect. Then it has this large piece that cuts out like a swirl, but what's interesting about that is that it leaves the center intact. So this is what it looks like when you cut it out. So you can stamp your sentiment in here and put the whole thing down on your card. I thought that was very interesting. It reminded me a little bit of the swirly birds. Then there is this little edge die, and it cuts out these pieces. And I cut a couple of them out so that you could see, and I've got them set to go on one of the alternative cards. Then I stamped the leaves, and there's my leaves, and I stamped on just Poppy Parade, the large flower and the one smaller flower. So these are the dies for the flowers. There's for the large flower and the smaller flower. Then there is this little banner piece, and that cuts out this banner, and it's got kind of a raised detail around the edge of it, which makes it, there it is, you can see that maybe if I bring that up to the camera, and it makes for a really pretty edging on that for your sentiment. And on this one I just stamped a sentiment and cut it out, and so what I've got are flowers and leaves, and I've got probably more than I need, but I wanted to show you what these things looked like and how they came out. So that is the stamp set, and it's, or the die set, and it's called Painted Labels Dies, and there are 9 dies in here. On to this. If I take these 2 pieces here, and some of these I've colored, and I thought I would just show you, I took my Poppy Parade blender pen, and I took the big brush end, and I just went around the edges of the flower and right at the center in the bottom, just to give it a little variation in color. And I did this on Poppy Parade cardstock. So there we go. And it just adds a little bit of color. You wouldn't have to really do this if you didn't want to. But I did mine. And so the other thing that I've used is we have this ribbon that is in the catalog, and it's called Reversible Ribbon, and it's got Old Olive on one side, and then it has Pretty Peacock on the other. And so what I decided to do was I took this piece that is the Old Olive, and I used it around the bottom of my card, and so I just need a piece that's about that long. And let's see, I need my silicone mat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on the Pretty Peacock side because I want the Old Olive to show. That's not going to looks like it's going to have a hard time picking up. It is. It's going to have a hard time picking up any glue at all on that surface. I'm going to try and get a little bit. I can always use glue dots. Okay, so I want this set pretty far down here on my card front, and I want this to come across here and come across here and cross right about there, because I know that's not going to stay put. What I'm going to do is use my pokey tool here and take off a couple of glue dots and get glue dots put down here. Glue dots, bless them, can make anything stick to anything else. It's pretty amazing stuff. Okay, so I've got that coming across there, and I can wiggle that around and make sure it's straight. Put this in place across the back of here. It'll add a little bit to our decorations on the inside. And I'm going to put a glue dot underneath here to just hold that ribbon in place. There we go. All right, so there we have the first part of our decoration done. All right, now what I did on these is I just stamped my poppy and my small poppy, these two, on a piece of scrap of the Poppy Parade, and then used those pieces to die cut out my flowers. So I'll do those just so you can see what I'm talking about here. Just did it in my Memento because I was going to use my blender pens and get a nice crisp image of the flowers and give myself enough room that I can use my dies there. And then what I did in this case is I used my black marker pen and I added more black dots in the middle. So I'm going to do that same thing with the smaller flower that I just colored, and we'll get that put into place. Let me move a few of these things away. I'm getting kind of crowded in here. All right, I did the same thing on this, where I took a piece of old olive and I used the leaf stamp and stamped several of these leaves on my scrap of paper and then die cut out the leaves. As is my practice to save a little bit of time, I've already got mine cut out. I used dimensionals on the back of my flowers. What I wanted to do was make sure that these flowers get put down here so that they just catch the edge, and so I don't want to put dimensionals here at the top. I want to start them more like about midway, and I want actually to put quite a few because this is the mechanism that's going to hold our card shut. So I want to make sure that it's got lots of sticky stuff on it and stays put. So I'm going to peel that off and we're going to set the first flower into place. So I want to put that right about there, just so that it'll hold that card shut. And that's really all we need to do on that one, and get my poppies put in place here. I guess I have to decide how I want those on. I think like that. So they're both raised. And then I did a couple of things. I used my silicone mat and just put some snail on the back of these leaves, and I laid these leaves down flat on the card. And then I did tie a bow. Now this bow is a little tricky to tie because we really only want the old olive side, but we've got two-sided. So what you have to do is you have to make your first loop here, and you have to go around so that your knot is the same color as this. Then in the back, you twist it and push it through this way so that your knot your two loops are the same color. So you twist it and then put it through. And that way you get the same color showing on both sides of your loop. Then you pull your knot fairly tight because you don't want that twisting around. And I didn't want a very big bow, just a little one. And then I'm going to cut my tails fairly close on this and put a glue dot on the back of my bow, and I put that into place right down here on the ribbon. So there we have that piece. Then I have a little piece of white, and have you seen this? Isn't this the cutest thing in the world? This little mini trimmer that's available to people who are joining in January. I made this piece. I'm going to use this little scrap that I've got here. So let me just check the measurement on this. I think that is 2 inches by 1 inch. So I'm going to put this on my little mini trimmer here, and I'm going to get a piece that is 2 inches, and then I'm going to cut a 1 inch piece off. This is so handy for sentiments, and it's small enough that it really fits right on your desk so that you can make these sentiments pretty easily. I've got the happy birthday, and I'm going to ink that up and set that on this little banner. And try and get that centered. There we go, a happy birthday. I have to let that dry for just a second because I sure don't want that to smear. But let's see, so we can maybe do the inside of the card next. So I have my piece of Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to set that. Let's see, we have to do a little bit of stamping on the inside of this and put our little piece of designer series paper down. So let's see, I put the little flower up here in the corner. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I have this piece that I had left of this designer series paper that we cut off to fit on the inside. And I'm going to add a little bit of snail. This one is going to fit right along the bottom. There we go. And doesn't that make a pretty card inside? So now we're going to add a little bit of snail to the back of this and put this in place on the inside of our card. And isn't that just gorgeous? And here we go. This now fits behind here to stay closed, and my sentiment is ready to go on, and I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back of my sentiment. This happy birthday right up here. This flower assembly is more to this side, so I thought this looked a little bit better up on the left here. And then what I did was I used some of the poppy dimension, or the sequins, the poppy sequin mix. And there we go. That is our project for the day. And I think I could have gone a little bit darker on this background, or just left it off altogether. But it looks like it has a little bit of texture. It's probably hard to see on the camera. But there we go. That is our project for the day. And I'll show you the other variations that I created when I was making this card. Now, this is a very special card because you're using a full piece of paper to put this together, and I don't often do that. I usually am pretty frugal about my use of paper, but I really like the idea of this fold that opened up like this and then closed down and stayed put like this. So that is that card. Let me show you the next version down. Now, this one I put on a white base, and I left a little bit of margin on the top and the bottom of this one. Now, you could also elect to have your upper flap come much further down the card. I didn't use a ribbon across here. I did put the poppies on here to close the card just like the other one, and I used this swirly label, stamped a thank you on here, and I just used regular rhinestones. Now, the other thing on this one that I used was this lovely twine, and it actually comes in Poppy Parade, black, navy blue, and this old olive, and it's the Country Club twine combo pack, so you get all 4 pieces of twine in here. It has basic black, this is garden green actually, but it kind of worked with this. Night of Navy and Poppy Parade. So we do have some Poppy Parade twine in this combo pack. So it's worth it probably to get this twine package, because this would also, I think, it looks dark enough that it would go with the Mossy Meadow as well. But having the Poppy Parade, given the suite of products, is probably a really good idea. So this one opens exactly the same way. And on this one, I used some of this designer series paper, also with the black on the other side, and just to get a different mottled kind of look on the inside of this card. And I think it's light enough, depending on where you cut it, to go ahead and do your sentiment on there. So this one was a little less elaborate than the first one, although it did use a full piece of paper because I used 2 pieces of the white to make that one. Now, this is most like the card that Katina made. And I think hers had some ribbon across here. Now, this is one where I used this little banner, and I did a thank you. And on this one, I used the iridescent sequins, and I think the green ones kind of work with this. Put a ribbon on here, just one of the flowers here, just a white inside, and then these little things here. What I did was I put these down, and I started one on this end and just glued it into place, and then I overlapped this one on top of that one and glued it coming across, and then just trimmed off the edge. But I thought it was kind of cute and a little bit different. But that makes also a lovely card, much simpler to do. This one has a tiny little border all the way around this upper piece. I think all of these are absolutely gorgeous. And this is kind of a sampling of what I'll be doing when I get my online class going, where you would get, I think what I'm going to end up doing is 8 cards, 2 each of 4 different designs when we get that going. And I'm still waiting for some things to be done on my blog so that I can get that up and get it moving along. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, or you could join my team. This is a particularly wonderful time of the year to join. We have in sale abrasion, there's always a wonderful join deal. It's $125 worth of product for $99, which is the normal deal. Plus, you get this little mini guillotine trimmer, and you saw how easy it is. I think for just trimming a bit off the edge of something, or to make sentiments, and you know me, I can't cut anything straight, so hauling out the big trimmer, this is kind of nice to have on your tabletop here. And then you get a sampler of some of the designer series paper, and you get a stamp set of your choice. So it's a particularly wonderful, I think, join offer. I know I have a couple people looking, and if you'd like to talk about it, my number is always listed below the video. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Give me a call. I love talking to people. So that's it again for me, and this is January, so my January prize is a bundle of your choice out of the new mini catalog. I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips.